Remember in the end of my last video when I said this?
Doing the costume is not going to be nearly as hard as doing these, so that video will be out soon.
Yeah, that was definitely wrong. While I was making this, I made a lot of mistakes, but I also learned a lot of new things, and now you get to come along on the adventure. The base of the suit is a foam and spandex muscle suit that I got on Amazon, as well as a dark blue morph suit that you can wear on top of the muscle suit. It looked okay, but I wanted to try my hand at airbrushing muscles on to see if I could make it look better. I really heavily thinned the black paint that I used so that it was a little more forgiving while I was trying to do this for the first time. And I also just looked up a pencil drawing on Google so that I could see what muscle shapes were like while I was trying to paint them, and also follow the foam that was inside the suit. They didn't put thigh muscle pads in, but they put in butt cheek muscle pads. Oh yeah. I mean, it's good enough for, it's gonna shoot real flames, so time for other paint. Don't move. Pulls the tape off.
I'm a fidgeter.
I know. I taped off all the areas that were going to receive paint so that I could see what the shapes looked like before I actually put paint on it.
Right about now would be a bad time to have to pee, right?
Yes. And then I taped around that. You've been moving.
No, I haven't.
It's not centered.
It's a figment of your imagination.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And masked everything off with sheets of plastic. A piece of tape and I'll rip a hole through your mouth.
Okay.
There.
Okay, that's better.
Safety first. I used fabric spray paint on the suit, but that soaked through a lot and I was getting terrible coverage, so I used Super 77 spray adhesive to seal the fabric before I put more on. Then I got great coverage, but I was having a really hard time getting the masking tape to stick to the spandex, but it was super easy to remove the overspray with a little bit of acetone on a rag. Ta-da! To make this thing look convincing and good, I've got to hide as much of the fire system as possible so that you don't know how I'm making fire. And there's no way 4 propane tanks are going to fit inside the suit with me, but I can hide all the other stuff. So I cut access points for the hoses and the straps that'll hold the backpack on to come out of. That way the hoses and straps that you'd be able to see on your arms and your body were hidden underneath the muscle suit so that you couldn't tell any of it was there. And I also had to remove the muscle suit where the band brace part with all the bits on it goes because I made it to fit my arm, not the muscle suit. Now comes the difficult part where I have to integrate all the different pieces into the suit, and luckily I have another friend who is basically about the exact same size as me, and he's gonna wear it this time so that I can get these things integrated. Luckily he's willing to stand here for a couple of hours and let me do stuff to the suit.
I'm here, buddy.
Thanks. This is extra. It needs to go.
No!
Close this door. Does that really hurt?
No.
Okay. Bingo. That's the wrong arm.
I knew that.
I'm gonna put the hoses on now. Then I'll attach this to that. One outside. Inside with hose. Okay. This is why you need to have your friends help because, well, I mean, not that you would be able to get a stranger to help you do this, but it's gonna get personal. Oh, wow, it's tight in there. Okay. This is one of those tool retrievers. I'm gonna shove this up through and see if I can grab the hose with it.
You're gonna do what with it?
Think. It came off. Cosplay's a lot easier when it doesn't have to do what the superhero does. You just look like it. If this slips off, you can pull back on it and you'll get a lot more grip with that part. I was afraid you'd be able to see it like a giant earthworm just right up his arm, but you can't really even tell it's there. The tubes are all connected. Both sides. See? Now I gotta put the backpack on. And that's gonna go right there. These are gonna double as passages for the straps, and that's what these holes down here are for. And then I'm not just gonna connect it to the EVA that's on the back of this. That's for insulation to keep it from freezing the skin on my back. So this needs to get connected somehow. It'll be like that. And then, yeah, yep. Buckles can't fit inside the suit with the hoses coming out, so they're gonna have to be outside, which means this can sit right here and the buckles will hang down right there. And then for the bottom part, I don't know. Figure it out. So here we go. If I start at that one, if I go from, no, so if I came around, so if I start here, go down here, and then bring it across to that one, and I can cross up to here, and then I just have 2 adjustment points there. That's the plan. Time to get real personal. There we go.
You at least bought me dinner first. Your rope burn.
Like that. Okay. Where is it?
I don't know.
Can you not feel it?
No, I can't feel anything.
I don't know where it is either. Let me put some lipstick on. I'd like to feel pretty. All right, put your finger right there.
Got it?
Yep.
don't know why you said you couldn't do this with a stranger.
Okay.
Are these things on fire?
Yes. Always cauterize your nylon straps, otherwise they come apart.
Don't burn your test dummy. Not that I'm a dummy. Dang it. Is this a bad time to tell you I have to pee?
Yes.
Okay.
This piece of paper, or poster board? It's thick paper, is the same size exactly as the sheet of Kydex. So now I can use this and create a template of how this is going to interact with the buckles. I can work with this area. Ta-da! Template. So now I need to attach so that this all goes on as one piece. And then once this is all glued on, then you'll be able to put the suit on, and then the covers that'll go on it can just go on after. It's got to look like Endeavor's thingies that he's got on his arms. Time to hot glue. A little bit at a time. Make sure it's all lined up correctly. Can you feel the warmth coming through it at all? Cool.
Exactly.
It's all glued tight now. Now we just got to add the collar. Time to make a paper template.
Scissors?
Oh yeah, sorry. Alright, so there's that one. We do another one. Template number 2! Basically, I'm going to glue these things on now, and then I'm going to trim them up a little bit to make them the right shape after they're on. There's probably a lot better way to do this, but I don't know what that way is. So, and glue a bunch of foam to my friend. You have a lot of chest hair sticking out. It looks like you have a mouse hiding in your... It's extra warmth. You and your pet mouse will be done here shortly. Time to trim. I'm gonna take this off of him and send him home, and then I need to cover this foam with the fabric from his feet. I really don't want to do this part because if I screw it up, I can't really do it over again. But I did some tests, and barge works the best because it's so strong that it'll actually tear the foam apart when it starts to come off. And it doesn't go through the fabric as long as I'm careful and put a nice light coat on. But I didn't get a nice light coat of contact cement on the spandex, and it ended up all splotchy and it looked terrible, and I tried a bunch of different solvents to try to clean it off and make it look better, and that didn't work. So I just used some black paint in my airbrush layer to even it out and make it look better. Whatever. Close enough. On his costume, there's red lines around this part, so I'm going to use this deep red dimensional fabric paint to try to put those lines on with a brush. And I'm going to do the back first because it's going to be covered by the backpack, so it's hidden. So this is like a practice area. Man, I was afraid of this. It's very low in pigment. So when you put it on, you can see right through it. So this is really difficult to keep an even line. Maybe I'll just squirt it on. I mean, you can't see through it, but it looks terrible. I wish something could end up just being easy on this project. I just had a great idea. Instead of painting this and waiting 4 hours for it to dry, I can use this and I can cut strips off of it and paint it with the red plastic dip, and it'll match better, and I can glue it on in strips. It'll have that three-dimensional aspect and it'll look better. Alright, painting time. I pre-cut the angles so that it looks cleaner after it's painted. Oh wait, supposed to heat seal it with heat gun. Here we go. Endeavor maintains flames on his head, his body, and his boots all the time. I can't do that because I'm not fireproof, and neither is the suit. So I had to figure out a way to look like this without being on fire. I found that a lot of cosplayers use colored lens filters or clear plastic with transparent spray paint to make really realistic looking fire, but it's also hard plastic that you have to shape with a heat gun, and it would severely limit the mobility since it's gonna be all over my body, and it's expensive. So instead of using that stuff, I used EVA craft foam, which would be flexible, and it's easy to attach with super glue, but I had to spend an entire day cutting out about 1 million different flame shapes, and then I painted them a little bit to give them some gradient so that they weren't just solid colors. Thankfully, I cut out enough flames that I had enough left over to do the boots. The problem was I needed the paint to stick to the boots well enough that I could glue the flames on and it wouldn't just fall off with the paint. Endeavor's got big old fire boots. So I got these rubber boots and I need to make them look like fire. I'm gonna wipe them down with acetone. I'm gonna use vinyl paint for the bottom, which is white, and I'm gonna use red plasti dip for the rest of it, and then I'm gonna highlight it with regular spray paint to see if I can get that fire look. And I'll add EVA foam just like the rest of the costume. Hopefully I don't spend all this time doing it just to have it not work. Check this out. Massive fail. This stuff just falls right off. It doesn't stick hardly at all. But I've got a test going. This is Plasti-Dip on the rubber. This is Plasti-Dip on sanded rubber. This is regular spray paint, and this is vinyl spray paint on sanded rubber. The verdict is that there's two things that stick, and one is Plasti-Dip. If you let it dry for a really long time, it actually holds on pretty well. But what makes it work really well is if you hit it with a wire wheel, this thing, that roughed up surface holds the paint. Mechanical adhesion versus chemical, and that's gonna help a lot whenever I do the flames that need glued all over it. So mechanical adhesion it is. You know how difficult it is to use a wire wheel on rubber? It sucks. I found this stuff. It's an oil-based paint marker, and that actually sticks, and it's white, so that's what I'm gonna do the soles with. This paint marker didn't go very far, so I'm gonna have to use some different spray paint. I don't even know where I got this, but it's gone, and I don't have another one. I'm gonna try to get these things taped off as quick as I can, get them painted, so that I can put flames on them and be done. I don't want to paint boots anymore. It's starting to get annoying. When I bought these boots, I did not think it would be this difficult to change the color of rubber. The Plasti-Dip is gonna stick like crazy to the wire brushed rubber, but it doesn't cover very well on black. So what I'm gonna do, see the red a lot more there. I'm gonna hit like a primer coat of Plasti-Dip on this, and then I'm gonna spray a little white, cover up the black, and then I'll do more red. Now for the fun part, other colors. All right, I gotta open the door. It's getting bad in here. Ta-da. Now I just gotta let them dry so I can glue the flames on them. I just used super glue to attach all the flames and it worked really well, and then I cut little slits in the front and used some actual shoelaces to make the little lace parts that he has on his boots in the show. And now it's time for what's turning out to be the most difficult part of this entire project. This is a vambrace section that I needed to make to cover up all this stuff so that I look like Endeavor does. The difficult part of this is it has to be removable, because you're not going to be able to get your arm through and get it snapped tight on your arm with that on. And you also have to have access to the inside so you can charge the batteries or service anything that might go wrong with the stuff inside. And you also can't reach inside to connect and disconnect it because it seals tight to your arm and your hand for the most part. And you also can't use magnets in some places because that affects the solenoids and the plasma lighter that creates the ignition. And you can't have anything stick off of it very far, otherwise it won't clear and you can't put it on. And it also needs space for the switch to move around so you can activate the system. But it also needs to stay in place very specifically when it's on so that it doesn't move around, because otherwise it might misalign from the fuel outlets and then you'll catch yourself on fire. Not to mention there's nothing to form it onto because this crazy shape is not round, so it's kind of like putting a round peg in a square hole or vice versa. So I decided to build a round peg and build the round hole around it. I didn't come up with this system lightly. I tried a bunch of other stuff like forming Kydex and EVA, and I couldn't get anything to work, so I decided to do it this way. So after measuring a whole bunch of points to give me the diameter that I needed the piece to be, I used a circle cutter to cut out a bunch of discs, and then I glued them together. And then I set up a ramshackle lathe system to bring it down to the exact dimensions that I needed and smooth it out so that I could cover it in fiberglass. And I need to use it twice, so I wrapped everything in saran wrap. I threw some contact adhesive on to hold the fiberglass in place, and then I wrapped it and I epoxied it, and it didn't set up, because apparently Super 77 spray adhesive keeps fiberglass resin from curing. So I put another layer of fiberglass on and I covered that with saran wrap to hold it down, and then I had a nice hard layer that I could actually work with. Even though I wrapped it with saran wrap to keep all the fiberglass pieces down and tight in place, I still had to sand it to take some stuff off, and then I wrapped it in saran wrap again and covered it with masking tape to make a template for the EVA foam that had to go on there so that I could have that three-dimensionality like he has on his, where there's recessed black sections. And then I barged those onto the fiberglass shell, and I tried to sand it to get it smooth because I made a bunch of little mistakes. And I used this stuff to try to fill in some of the gaps in the foam, and that didn't work very well. And I found some Rust-Oleum peelable paint that I thought might help fill in the gaps, and I did a few layers of that, and that didn't work, so I wet sanded it, and the wet sanding didn't really fix anything. And then by accident, I bought this can of Rust-Oleum peelable primer, and this stuff sprays on like bed liner. It builds up crazy fast, and it hid everything that was wrong with it, so I could finally move on. But it also lays on so thick that I had to cut the edges around the masked areas to make sure that it didn't peel it off of the entire thing. I used a thin strip of masking tape to act as my guidelines to score the foam for the seam line that's on these, and then I used a rotary tool to separate the two halves down the middle of that line and peeled off the excess foam. And then I used a drum sander to remove all the excess material so that I get this to fit nice and snug around all the bits on the arm. But then I still had to figure out how to attach this thing without interfering with all the stuff that's inside. And it has to be removable. And it can't have stuff that shows on the outside, otherwise it wouldn't look right. So I used little Kydex strips and magnets and nuts to act as attachment and guides so that this thing will go together, because it can't be offset at all, otherwise one side will tuck inside the other. And it's a little bit difficult to get it lined up and put on, but once it's on, it works pretty well. But it still needs something to positively locate it in relation to the guts on the inside so that it didn't block the flame, so I used some JB putty epoxy to make little standoffs that go on the parts that are on your arm and then attach to this with a magnet in a location where there isn't anything that'll be affected by it, to make sure that this part here doesn't move around so that the propane doesn't get blown back into here and catch my entire arm on fire. And I still need to make another one of these for the other side. But it's almost done. All that I have left on my list to do is the hand pieces that go on the back of the gloves, the belt buckle, the little pouch that he has that's on his belt, a cover for the propane backpack so that it doesn't look weird with a bunch of propane tanks on, and the flame parts that go on my face and head. But none of that's going to be very interesting or any different from the stuff that I showed you so far in this video. So the next video is going to be using this thing, and it'll be completed. So make sure you subscribe to catch that video when it comes out, and if you want to see stuff before I release it on YouTube, make sure to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, because I post stuff while I'm working on it there. That's it. Bye.
Yep.
Yep.